We are pleased to welcome back one of our most outstanding Cal biochemistry graduates, Timothy Springer, class of '71. Tim hails from Fort Benning, Georgia, but he spent much of his early life in California and started Cal as a National Merit Scholar and graduated with distinction, Phi Beta Kappa, and the Biochemistry Department citation as our top graduate. During his time here, Tim worked in the lab of our dear friend and colleague Jack Kirsch and took his interest in enzyme reaction mechanisms in the direction of immunology to PhD work with Jack Strominger at Harvard and postdoctoral work with Cesar Milstein at the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology in Cambridge, Britain. In 1977, he began his independent career at Harvard Medical School, where he has remained to this day and is currently the Latham Family Professor and founding director and executive chair of the Institute for Protein Innovation. At Harvard, Springer's research has changed our understanding of cell-to-cell interactions that control immune responses and the movement of leukocyte subsets out of the vasculature into tissues. He discovered the first examples of cell recognition receptors and counterreceptors and the first family of integrins. He subsequently showed molecularly how integrins transmit signals between the exterior and interior of cells to enable cell movement. He opened the way for the first therapeutic use of antibodies to cell recognition receptors to treat autoimmune diseases. His discoveries and entrepreneurship have led to an important new class of therapeutics for multiple autoimmune diseases, including psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, and cancer. His work has been recognized by a string of national and international awards, notably election to the National Academy of Sciences, the Crafoord Prize of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, and in 2019, the Gairdner International Award, which is the highest biomedical prize in Canada. The direct connection of his research to clinical application has led him to an incredible career in biotechnology, with his own startups and insightful investments. Back in 2010, Tim was the first person to invest in Moderna, long before there was any prospect of the mRNA vaccine. Tim has been generous in his success, having endowed the Institute of Protein Innovation at Harvard, and with a gift to Cal to enable the creation of the Springer Kirsch Chair in Biochemistry, currently held by our BBS colleague Jim Hurley. On the side, as a fun fact, Tim has been inspired by the gongshi, or Chinese scholars' rocks, naturally sculpted rocks that have been treasured across China, Korea, and Japan for centuries, and even named one of his biopharmaceutical companies, Scholar Rock, after them. Tim was inspired to make a major acquisition when he began building a new house. He wanted to plant a monumental rock in the garden, tall enough to scale the height of his home's second story. And he wanted to choose it himself in China, a 23-ton masterpiece now resting in his backyard. Over the years, he bought thousands of rocks. Well, with that introduction, I'd like to invite our own rock star, Tim Springer, to the podium to address this year's graduates. This is now 51 years after his graduation from Cal. Welcome back, Tim.
Good morning. Well, the great thing about rocks is that they don't make any noise and you don't have to clean up after them. Thank you, Randy, for that generous introduction. Every time I visit Berkeley, I'm in awe of the professors here, just like I was of the professors of old when I was a student. being in their company makes me feel like a student again, and is humbling. To share the stage with this esteemed faculty, some of whom, like Randy, are Nobel laureates, is an honor. But it's an even bigger honor to say, congratulations to the classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022. To graduate from Berkeley is impressive enough. To do it during the worst pandemic in a century, that's heroic. It's a privilege to share this day with you and your families. I'm so happy to be back at Berkeley, but a lot has changed since I was a student here. You probably know that Berkeley recently opened a Center for Psychedelic Research. That's a big deal. In my day, we had a place with a similar mission. Our living room. To be back here, to breathe in the cool, fresh air, to be immersed in world-class science, it all brings back wonderful memories. Berkeley was a perfect fit for me as a bookish kid from NorCal, even if it took me a few extra years and a long detour to get here. You see, I arrived on campus as a transfer student. After a disenchanting year at Yale. There were a couple early signs that I wouldn't fit in there. One was having to wear a tie at lunch. Sometimes I wore it over a t-shirt. And Yale was all male. There weren't even any women to look nice for. And certain students made it hard. There was this one flaming a-hole in particular. Sorry, I should make it clear that I'm being literal here. Some of the kids who'd gone to prep school had a thing for using lighters to ignite their farts on fire like a blowtorch. For real. Fortunately, I only saw it once. I was also rebelling against the political establishment running the Vietnam War. And many of those folks, the supposed best and brightest, who'd gotten into that mess, had been educated in East Coast Ivies like Yale. So as the year went on, I wanted something more. I wanted to help make the world better, even if I didn't know how just yet. I started by dropping out to join the Domestic Peace Corps. I served on a Shoshone reservation in Nevada, living in a little cabin with no electricity, telephone, or running water. My transportation was a horse named Lightning. Needless to say, life was different than it was at Yale, especially when it came to education. A one-room schoolhouse on the reservation served grades 1 through 8. But the nearest high school was 30 miles away. And in winter, a dirt road over a mountain pass made it impossible to get to. In the same country where some lucky kids at the most prestigious universities in the world were lighting their farts on fire. Other kids couldn't even get a high school education. The Shoshones and I wanted to do something about it. So when the governor of Nevada held county road hearings, we made sure to show up at each one and share what the kids in the community were going through. And within a year, that road was being paved. That experience taught me a lot of things about standing up and speaking out, about perseverance, about refusing to accept that the way things are is the way they always have to be. After my year in the Domestic Peace Corps, I arrived at Berkeley grateful for a new chance to grow as a student and as a human being. And this school delivered the kind of education I couldn't have dreamed of. On this campus, I found the same desire to build a better world that I had experienced with the Shoshones. People's Park was full of students and activists pitching in to make a parking lot into a beautiful place. And there were protests against the war in Vietnam and the Cambodia invasion. Ronald Reagan was California's governor then, and he flooded campus with tear gas and soldiers holding rifles in the name of order. One day, I found myself at the wrong end of a bayonet. Not because I was protesting, but because on campus, I had inadvertently sat on the vice chancellor's grass to study for an exam. Now, I like studying, but not that much. So I got up and got on with my education. Berkeley rekindled in me an old childhood dream of being an explorer. I discovered microscopic cellular worlds, ever-changing protein galaxies, the brilliant universe of the immune system. And it equipped me, and I hope it did all of you, with all the values vital to exploration: free speech, inquiry, and openness to new ideas, different ways of thinking, and the courage to change course if, God forbid, we might occasionally be wrong. This place challenged us as students, but it's not supposed to be the end of the road. It's supposed to be the beginning. Your journey as students is over, maybe, but your journey as scientists is just getting started. And if I can offer you one piece of advice that I have picked up along my winding helix of a career, it's that the key to a successful, happy life is to never stop challenging yourself, to never stop learning. After Berkeley, I went on to get a PhD in biochemistry at Harvard, followed by a postdoc in Cambridge, England, a place that dazzled me like an academic paradise. It was Hogwarts before Hogwarts was a thing. But I found out that the work I was doing there was following up on previously published research that was fraudulent. The science simply was not real. But Berkeley taught me well, instilling a commitment to the truth, even and especially when it runs counter to our pre-existing assumptions. I made a fuss, and when the previous experiments could not be reproduced, they were retracted. Berkeley equipped me to stand firm in my beliefs, to be willing to discard hypotheses if they weren't supported by experiments, to always follow the science. That means proving everything 2 or 3 different ways, countering subjectivity with blinded experiments. allowing your own hypotheses to be falsified, which can liberate you to step back and reconsider everything. Taking a step back is often necessary to move on. It's like that Olivia Rodrigo song, only in reverse. 1 step back, 3 steps forward. My daughter taught me about that. How do I know? Because I have lived it over and over. And during my postdoc, by an amazing stroke of luck, that willingness to question assumptions, to step back out of the lab I worked in, led me to a new mentor, Cesar Milstein. He just discovered monoclonal antibodies, for which he'd later win the Nobel Prize. After 6 months with Cesar, I went to Harvard Medical School to take a faculty position where I focused on immunology. And some of my earliest work as a faculty member, work grounded in my biochemistry training and grounded in what I learned from Cesar, led me to make a discovery that translated into psoriasis drugs. A few years later, I discovered molecules on the surface of white cells of the immune system that could route those cells wherever they needed to go in the body, just like the area code for a phone call. And that breakthrough opened up a whole new area for drug discovery that was much bigger than anything I could do in my own lab at Harvard. So I challenged myself again by taking a risk and starting a company, where we used this breakthrough to develop 3 new drugs that are still helping patients today. Now, I never viewed science as a way to make money. I viewed it as a way to spend my life asking questions and seeking out answers to understand the beautiful way that nature and life work, for the benefit of humankind. Besides, I like the academic lifestyle. It suits me. I'm more comfortable in a lab than I am on stage, if you couldn't tell. But business success opened a new door, the door to philanthropy and nonprofit work, and the chance to translate new scientific discoveries into drugs to help patients. So I dove into founding new companies. And then in 2010, a fellow faculty member told me that he wanted to start a company working on something called messenger RNA, or mRNA. But he had not been able to obtain venture capital funding. That day, everything I had learned over the course of my life, all the scientific training from my professors and TAs, all the wisdom I had gained from mentors along the way, coalesced to give me confidence that I was looking at a transformational company. So I rolled up my sleeves, used my networks to recruit other founders and investors, and helped him get the company started. Because modified mRNA was science I believed in, and it had the potential to change, even save lives. The fact that we're all here in person today, instead of yet enduring another Zoom call, suggests I made the right choice. Because that company's name, is Moderna. The only reason I was positioned to found that company in the first place was because I had decided to live a life where I would keep questioning, keep learning, keep challenging myself. My latest challenge, and possibly the biggest, is a nonprofit making a new kind of antibody. It's an attempt to do for new generations of researchers what Cesar's monoclonal technology made possible for me. And hopefully, It sets up future scientists, like many of you, to devote themselves to lifelong learning just as I have. Because that, to me, is the most useful path to creating a fulfilled and happy life. Once you walk out of here today, though, you have to choose to live a life like that. To land that first position is exciting. To settle into it, to go with the flow, is easy. To challenge yourself, to question the status quo, to change course and keep on learning, that's hard. But it takes you to better, more interesting places. And I hope that wherever you go next, you take the approach of a scientist with a willingness to learn by testing out a bunch of hypotheses. And if they're wrong, if you're wrong, if you've made the wrong assumption, or took the wrong job, into the wrong field, or even find yourself in the wrong relationship, I hope you gain the wisdom here to seek out the answer to a new question. Because there's no shortage of questions out there. You are graduating into a world that's even more fraught than the world I graduated into. But it's also a world that's more desperate for scientific advancement and achievement. A world that needs you to test the beliefs we hold to be true. Test the way things have always been done. Test the doomsayers who tell us things will only get worse from here. Because the one hypothesis I know to be true and reproducible is that our future depends on exactly that. It depends on you dreaming up big ideas and putting in the rigorous work of making them a reality. The work of finally making this world better. As the newest Berkeley graduates, you are uniquely prepared to do that. And I and everyone else here today believe you will, because we believe in you. Thank you and congratulations.